Ancient Echoes full episode. The fall of the British Empire. How the world's largest empire finally faded. The empire where the sun never set. For centuries, the British Empire was the greatest power the world had ever seen. Its red-colored territories covered maps like spilled ink across continents. From the green fields of England to the sunburned plains of India, from African coasts to Caribbean islands, the empire shaped global trade, politics, culture, and war. But like every empire in history from Rome to the Mongols, the British Empire carried the seeds of its own end. This is the story of how the most powerful empire in human history fell. Not in a single moment, but through a slow, unstoppable unraveling. The empire at its peak. The giant before the fall. In the early 1900s, the British Empire stood unmatched. Its navy ruled the oceans. Its trade networks controlled global wealth. Its colonies provided soldiers, raw materials, and vast markets. But beneath this grandeur, cracks had already formed. The empire had expanded too quickly. Managing cultures, languages, and millions of subjects required resources that stretched even Britain's strength. Although many people in the colonies lived under British rule, not all of them accepted it willingly. The First World War 1914 to 1918, the beginning of strain. World War I changed everything. Britain emerged as a victor, but at a terrible cost. Millions of soldiers were lost. The economy weakened. War debts piled up. The empire had fought as one. India sent over 1 million troops. African colonies provided manpower, and soldiers from Canada, Australia, and New Zealand fought in Europe. After the war, these nations looked at Britain differently. They realized the empire needed them. And when people understand their value, they begin to ask for something in return. The rise of nationalism. Across Asia and Africa, voices rose. We want self-rule. We want independence. We want freedom. Newspapers, intellectuals, freedom fighters, and students sparked movements that Britain could no longer ignore. The British Empire didn't fall suddenly, it was slowly pushed back by the very people it governed. World War II, the blow that shook the empire. If World War I weakened Britain, World War II nearly broke it. When the war started in 1939, Britain found itself fighting one of history's most dangerous regimes. The battle against Nazi Germany consumed everything: money, factories, soldiers, ships, food, and fuel. By 1945, Britain was exhausted. Cities bombed, millions dead or injured, economy shattered, debt rising, and the empire's territories starting to slip away. Meanwhile, two new superpowers emerged. The United States, the Soviet Union, both openly opposed large colonial empires. India, the turning point. India was the jewel of the empire. It brought wealth, manpower, spices, cotton, trade routes, and prestige. But after fighting and dying for Britain in 2 world wars, India demanded freedom. Movements surged. Gandhi's civil disobedience. INC political pressure. Quit India movement. Rising uprisings and protests. The threat of a massive rebellion. Britain simply could not control India and rebuild its own destroyed homeland at the same time. In 1947, India gained independence. This single event changed world history. The keystone of the empire was removed. And once the keystone falls, the structure collapses. The Great Unraveling. Africa, the Middle East and Asia break free. After India's independence, the rest of the empire realized, if India is free, why not us? Asia, collapse of control. Burma, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Palestine, one after another, regions demanded independence. Burma, Myanmar declared neutrality from world powers. Palestine became a global crisis. Malaya fought a long emergency war but ultimately gained independence. British influence faded as fast as war debts rose. Africa, the winds of change. The 1950s and 1960s brought a political storm the British could not stop. Leaders rose across Africa. Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana, Jomo Kenyatta in Kenya, Julius Nyerere in Tanzania. These weren't small movements. They were tidal waves. Ghana became independent in 1957, becoming a symbol of a new era. Nigeria followed. Kenya fought a long struggle but eventually achieved victory. Uganda, Zambia, Malawi, Botswana, nation after nation reclaimed its freedom. The Suez Crisis, 1956, the end of illusions. The Suez Crisis was a moment of humiliation that exposed Britain's new weakness. When Egypt nationalized the Suez Canal, Britain attempted to take it back using military force. But the United States and the Soviet Union both told Britain to stop. And Britain stopped. It became clear. Britain was no longer a global superpower. An empire cannot survive if it must ask permission to act. The final years. From empire to Commonwealth. By the late 20th century, the British Empire was no longer an empire. Caribbean independence. Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, and other islands gained independence, choosing new futures. Middle East shifts. Britain withdrew from major positions in the region, including Yemen, Iraq, and the Gulf states. Hong Kong, the last chapter. In 1997, Hong Kong was handed back to China, marking the symbolic end of British imperial rule. An empire that once controlled vast lands across the globe had now transformed into something else entirely. The Commonwealth of Nations. Not a hierarchy, not a power structure, not an empire, but a voluntary association of independent countries connected through history, trade, and diplomacy. Why the empire fell. Summary. The British Empire collapsed because it expanded beyond manageable limits. Nationalism grew in the colonies. 2 world wars drained its strength. New global powers opposed colonialism. Local leaders led powerful independence movements. Economic collapse made control impossible. No single event ended the empire, it was a chain reaction spread across decades. Ending. What remains after an empire falls? Empires rise. Empires rule. Empires fall. But their consequences remain. The British Empire left behind. English as a global language. Parliamentary systems. Legal institutions. Trade networks. Cultural exchanges. Borders that still spark conflict. Legacies of both progress and pain. Its fall reshaped the world, giving birth to new nations, new identities, and a new international order. And in the echoes of history, one truth remains. No empire, no matter how powerful, escapes the cycle of rise and decline. The British Empire once claimed the sun would never set on its territories. But eventually, the sun did set. And in that sunset, the modern world was born.